to another episode of Uplift. I don't know about you, but I eat food. Maybe, just maybe like me, it'd be a good opportunity to explore and chew the fat about this subject. Come join us on Uplift today. G'day and welcome to Uplift, whether you're watching us live or on replay. No, we appreciate you. Thanks for joining us. My name is Sarah Wade. I'm coming to you from Perth in Western Australia. I'm looking forward to chewing the fat about today's episode. Joining us from both other people on your screen are from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. But of course, first, my co-host, beautiful human, Mr. Neil Thrussell. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. And as usual, it's probably 40 degrees there. Yes, in Perth.
It's getting a bit colder, actually. Yeah.
Colder. It's 39. And I'm really excited. Jen's is here to talk about we're not what we eat or identify as, because I'm really happy that we're not what we eat, because I'm identifying as a cookie right about now.
I'm on broccoli. And Jen, how about you? If you were food,
yeah. Nice. Well, thank you so much for having me, guys. This is fantastic. I always love any opportunity that I get to talk about nutrition and food and health. So thank you.
Fabulous. So if we were then to dive into this subject, what would be like something that a lot of people want to hear more juicy details about?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
What is something about like nutrition that people really want to hear the juicy details about, Jen?
You know, honestly, a lot of people really want to dive into the specific diets. That's the question I get all the time. Okay, so what's the best diet to have? Is it keto? Is it Mediterranean? Is it paleo? And what about those lectins, right? And so I get all of these questions about which diet is best. And really, the diet that I recommend the best is what suits that individual, because each person's body is so different in what our nutritional needs are, as to what we, depending on the age we are, depending on how active we are, and so many other variables. So it's really about, and what their goals are, right? You know, somebody that's trying to gain weight, somebody that's trying to lose weight, totally different, going to be different diet for them. So it's all over the map. Yes, for sure.
Absolutely, because in my house, my wife is endeavoring to gain weight, and I'm endeavoring to lose weight, and it's unfortunate that we just can't hand it over to each other, and it would be wonderful.
Yes.
But we can't do that. And I think that the perfect diet is the cookie diet, but but I don't think that that's very healthy, because it's almost all carbs, and some carbs for some people are a great thing, but I don't think 100% carb diet is a good thing.
Not necessarily, no. And I get a lot of people like on the whole range, like some have no clue about what a macro is, right? What is a macro? What are micros? All of that. And then I have others that are very well versed, and they want to dial in those macros, and they want to level up to the next level. And what else? What are the superfoods I can be adding into my daily diet, and how do I do that? So, and then everything in between.
Oh my God, I'm already lost. So what's a macro, and what the heck is a superfood?
There you go. So macros are, you'll know it as protein, fat, and carbs. Those are your macros, and we want them in a good ratio, depending on the goals that you're doing. You might play around with those macros for weight loss, weight gain, and really for your overall health, right? And micros are all of those minerals and vitamins that you hear about, vitamin A, vitamin D, all of those things. Yeah. And then superfoods. You want me to go on with superfoods or stop? Okay. And superfoods. There's everybody's heard of superfoods. Everybody probably has their own definition of what a superfood is. I believe a superfood to be one of those things that are so super rich in vitamins, minerals, and the macros that we want, such as like the greens. You probably, I don't know. Have you guys heard about spirulina, chlorella? Yes, no, yes. We're good. Good. Okay. Yeah. So they're super packed with nutrients. They're also very detoxifying for our system. So also for me, I don't eat a lot of meat, so the spirulina has protein in it. So it has such a high nutrient profile, or nutrient dense is what I refer to it as, nutrient dense foods. That's what I would call a superfood. So yeah.
So when we go back and think about school, we would talk about like the pyramid, the food pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming things have changed over the years, what we different diets and influences, and there's one person's voice, another person's voice. There's all these different people saying, do this, do that. What's something that you would recommend to somebody that's starting out and they're going up and down with their weight, or that something's going on with their nutrition? Where do you even start?
Well, and it can be really confusing because there's a lot of new research coming out too, and so you don't know what to believe, what not to believe. And the first thing that I would suggest is find somebody that you can work with, such as a naturopath, such as a nutrition coach, who can actually take stock of exactly where you are today and where you want to go, and then you can draw the path of how to get there. So if you're, wanting to gain weight in Neil's wife's case, then we look, okay, so where are you now? How much do you want to gain? And here's different ways to do it, but also within the scope of what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, right? I can tell people, eat this or eat that. And they may or may not want to do it, right?
Fair call. Yeah, you see all sorts of people. Like a couple of years ago, the celery juicing was just everywhere, and there were some people who just didn't like the taste of celery, or if you don't like something, you have that resistance. So if you're feeling the resistance, is this a common thing, Jen? Is this something that we all go through?
Yeah, we do have a resistance. I did a course where I took people through 3 months of getting to know their body, getting to know all of this information. And one of the things that we talked about was about intuitive eating, because it's become a big thing too. It's like I'm intuitive eating. But what a lot of people mix up is, I feel like I intuitively want this popcorn, or I intuitively, but they're not really, it's a head intuition versus a belly intuition, right? And so I have an exercise that I have them do for a day to really narrow in and look at and recognize their body cues versus their actual what their mind is thinking, because their mind might be in resistance, or it might be just wanting something out of habit, right? We eat at noon, so just at noon I want to eat something, or I get bored and I want to eat something, right? So it gets into that habit. So when you become very conscious of what you're doing day to day, then it sorts through the head and the intuitive eating part. Yeah. Did that explain it?
I love that you brought in. Sorry. I love that you brought in intuition into your eating, because I personally, if I go to my head, I am almost, I'm going to say 99.9% I'm going to choose a carb, because I'm addicted to carbs. But if I go to the intuition, and I feel, as you had said, into my belly or my gut, I will make other choices. But I personally don't talk to the gut, talk to the head, because it tastes good.
Yeah, exactly. We justify with our minds, right?
You know,
Is there any truth to that? Like, listen to your gut then, or is
I mean, there's a whole thing too. It's like your gut. You know that your gut is referred to as your second brain, right? There's more neurons in your gut than there is in a dog's brain. So, you know, it is telling us, it is sending signals all the time throughout our body, through our vagal nerve. And so, yes, we want to, you know, you have that gut feeling, right? Or as I get on the podcast and we're about to go live, I might feel those butterflies, right? That's the nervous system talking to my gut, right? And so, yeah, absolutely, we need to tune into that gut feeling, right? That we've heard of so many times, and yeah, it's a good thing. A good thing to listen to your gut, as long as it's not your head telling you that your gut wants this, right?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Is that like a distinction between, say, craving something sweet and, you know, like chocolate, and, you know, going to eat dates instead? Is that something like what you mean, or have I gone down?
There is a bit of a science behind the cravings bit too, right? And so, for instance, for some people that might crave chocolate, and when I'm saying chocolate, they're not just craving sweet, right? They just don't want that hit, right? Kind of like Neil was referring to that carb bit. But if you're really truly craving chocolate, and even like that, you like, oh yeah, I really, that, you know, that dark chocolate is like, I really feel like that right now, and it's your gut saying that, that might be an indication that you're low in magnesium. So certain cravings can mean things, and again, it's really getting to know your body and getting to know yourself as to what's a real craving versus what's in my head. Am I head hungry, or am I belly hungry? That's what I refer to. Yeah.
so this might be an unfair question, but how can someone get in touch with their food, like connect with their head and their heart as to what's going on, and to know the difference, like what they're craving as opposed to what the habitual craving is? Is there a way for a person to understand what's going on in their body?
You know, there's a lot of different ways, and one of the exercises in the program that I have people do is, you know, I'll say the caveat that I know these people that are in the program, and I've done an intake form for them, so I know that there's no issues for them to do it. Is what I'll do is I will have them do what I refer to as an apple day. And so for one day, all they eat is apples. They can have as many as they want. You know, you can have 5 at a time if you want. If you want, you know, it's up to you. But the caveat is 2 things. It's really slowing down to be in touch with when you're hungry, to take that moment to say, to feel into your body. And it's really interesting how, you know, I go into this exercise and everybody is just like, oh my God, I can't do this, and really not happy about it at all. And they come out the other side and it's like, oh yeah, I was just thirsty, because our hunger cues and our thirst cues are so closely related. So that's the other caveat I say too, is when you feel hungry, first thing you want to do is have a glass of water and wait 10 minutes, like a nice big glass of water, and wait 10 minutes. And then if you're hungry, still, your belly, then absolutely eat and let it sit in for a bit. And if you're still hungry, have another apple. That's okay. And it slows them down, and it takes the choice out as well. We get so garbled with, oh, what about, like I said, the macros, the micros, all the nutrients and stuff. So it makes it simple. It's just very simple. All we're doing is apple, We have apples and our body, and we're paying attention. And it's really fun to see them come out the other end of the day, and talk about what they learned, and how much more in touch with their body they really feel. So
Yeah. I'm curious then, as they progress through this time period, is there some sort of like meditative quality to eating the apple? Like hearing the crunch and feeling the juices explode in the mouth and the texture. Is that something that naturally comes, or perhaps something that you guide people to do?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You hit the nail on the head. I guide them through. We do some exercises prior to, and really exactly what you said is like, digestion starts not in the stomach, not in the mouth, but in the head, right? We see it, we smell it, we hear it, right? We hear the sizzle of something, we smell the aroma of something. That actually gets our salivary glands going, right? So it's the whole process of getting to know your food and slowing down. And I even have them take three simple breaths before each meal, because that's slowing down. We get in this fast-paced world that we're not in. Because the other thing too is that we need to be in a state of what they refer to as rest and digest, so that our parasympathetic system can take that food and digest it properly, versus if we are so stressed, then everything else is going away from our digestive system, and we're not digesting that food as well. And hence, that's one of the things, we are not what we eat, we're actually what we absorb. And if we're not slowing down and digesting that food, we're not absorbing those nutrients.
Key definition there. I love that we're not that to repeat we're not what we eat, but what we absorb. Oh, a powerful statement there. And there's so many ways that we can absorb things. Is there maybe a seed that you could plant in people's mind to help them to absorb this food in a nutritious way for themselves?
Yeah, and it starts in the head. And I've seen so many people, and this is the whole diet culture that we live in today. They'll feel guilty about having that slice of pizza, or they'll feel guilty about, right? So it's about, eating well enough most of the time. And then when you go off and have that, whatever you're going to have, just do it guilt-free and enjoy it, right? Just enjoy it. And that's far better for you than the stress that you're causing in your body by the guilt, the shame, and everything else, right? For sure.
So, is there foods that, Neil, the poor choice in food choices? So I will use me as the example of poor food choices, so that there's somebody to pick on. So, is there foods that Neil should avoid? Like just generally foods, or is just anything safe to eat? Like you mentioned chocolate. Most of us, I suspect, should stay away from refined sugars in any kind of quantity. Is there anything else?
It's you have it right. Refined foods of any kind, right? I hesitate to say that because we tend in our society to villainize food. There's, so many people are not having, they're not having lentils, and they're not having tomatoes, and they're not having these because of the lectins in them, right? It's like, no, we can cook them out and we can deal with them. I don't like villainizing any one food. Yes, in general, refined foods, because they're going to be higher in sodium, higher in sugars, and higher in all kinds of food additives as well, right? Just know what you're eating, and stick to the whole foods. The more whole foods, and rather than avoiding something, add more foods in that are good for you, because it's just a mental adjust, right? Where if you take something away from me, I don't like that. But if I give you something, you know, it just has a different feel to it. So start adding in more healthy whole foods, you know, more fruit, more vegetables, that kind of thing. And then you'll just naturally let go of the other things because you'll be nice and full.
My screen's gone haywire. I love that you sort of touched on the fact that we can get shame from food. You know, society will shun us for one reason or another, like a larger set person at a takeaway shop or a very skinny person eating carrots. You know, one extreme or another, everybody's to blame, right? So is there a way that we can stop shaming ourselves? You mentioned before about, you know, enjoying that cake or enjoying that thing you did. With all the information that you've got, Jen, how do we stop shaming ourselves and others when it comes to food, like what we eat or what we don't eat?
I think it really begins again with being really clear about what you want for yourself. And once you know what you want for yourself and you start, you know, identifying as a healthy person, I guess that's the thing, right? A lot of the diets are fad and all of that. But if our goal is just to be healthy, then there's so many paths that can get us there. I want to be healthy, I want to be fit, and I want to have energy. That's my goal. That's my personal goal. So then it's like either foods help with that or they don't. And it's like, yeah, I know that this is not going to be helping me today, but it's going to feed my soul, right? There's also that little piece. That's what I say to people about chocolate sometimes. It's like, yeah, but that's just for the soul.
I know when I was running marathons, and the day of the marathon, nutrition-wise, it is horrible because you're just like the fastest foods to digest is sugar. And so I'm taking in to get calories in because nothing like running 42 kilometers and trying to chew on a cheeseburger or, you know, it's like, yes, there's healthy alternatives. You can take apples and that, but you have to carry them. So sugars is the easiest thing to do. But I remember from my last marathon, after all those sugars, I was exhausted from the marathon. I'm on a sugar high and I'm like wanting to throw up. It's like, ugh, it's so much sugar.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was joking saying it sounds ideal. I think so what we have done to help him after that sugar rush then, Jan? Like he's finished the marathon and he's sugar high but depleted.
And here's the thing: there's all kinds of little tips and tricks that you can do. You know, Neil's talking about his blood sugar, right? And he during a marathon, you need to be continually adding to the fuel. Otherwise, you're burning up and you don't have anything to burn, right? So that's not most people. But most people day to day, when they will have a sugar spike, I'll tell you. When I was a long time ago in my 20s, I was embarrassed. I went to a doctor because I got to work and every morning I was feeling very ill. I was getting dizzy and I felt almost like fainting. I felt so just off, right?
Yep.
I went to the doctor and fortunately, not too many doctors are thinking about nutrition. This particular doctor was. And she said, "What are you eating for breakfast?" Well, this was in my 20s and early 20s. I'll say that. Anyways, so my breakfast consisted of a bagel, cream cheese, and I didn't drink coffee at the time, so I had a tea. But again, with sugar in it. And so what I could have easily have done is added some protein to that or some fat to that to be able to actually slow down how that entered my bloodstream, how that all those carbs and all that sugar affected my blood glucose. Yeah.
And I love my coffee. I love coffee. It's bad for me, but I love it. But I get along like the sugar. When I realized how much coffee I was drinking, and when I would every month, I mean every year in January, I would give up coffee, just cold turkey. And I would get the shakes, and all of a sudden I couldn't figure out why I couldn't go through the day. And it was not the coffee, it was the sugar that my body kept. So from 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, I was constantly filling with sugar. And when that wasn't there, it was like, oh my goodness, I had a hard time adjusting. Now I love my coffee so much, but I drink it black, and it's like, it's a win-win, because otherwise I'd probably be getting 2,000 calories worth of sugar
and everything else that goes in it, those double doubles, right? So you probably don't know what I'm talking about. A double double in Canada, we have fast food outlet, and they're famous for coffee with double sugar and double cream. So they refer to it as a double double.
Oh, shoot. Sounds great for the heart.
Exactly. Yes. So, Neil, you touched on something, and I just lost my train of thought there that I was going to talk about. It'll come back to me.
It's all good. So without villainizing, so we said to stay away from refined foods, and you briefly mentioned superfoods. So what, and you broadly said fruits and vegetables, but if you were to say, Neil, the carb king, what would you want to, without going through an intake form, what would you want Neil to increase more of? Is there something that would generally help most people?
That's a really hard question, because, like I said, everybody's so different in their biochemistry. And like I could say to you, eat more apples, but that also has sugar in it. So if you're diabetic, then maybe not, right?
Yep.
Have an apple with some nut butters, but if you have an allergy or something to nuts, then that's not going to be good. So it's hard to make an overall statement. One of the things I can say, though, is that we in Canada, I'm not certain about Australia, tend to be low on the fiber intake. And so fiber is something like, that's why part of the reason why we want our fruits and vegetables, right, is because we want to get that fiber intake up, and that we're just having a really, our system, from the time we eat to the time we let it go, should be between 18 and 24 hours. And you can judge how well your digestive system is working based on that simple test. Eat beets, make note what time you ate the beets, see what time it comes out, because it's going to be red, right? It's going to be red. You can do the same thing with corn, right? And see how efficient it is. We don't want it to be too fast. We don't want it to be too slow. If it's too fast, we're just not, again, we're not absorbing the nutrients. We're eating all the food we want, but our body isn't getting the nutrients. And so we could be still hungry, right? But if it's too slow, then what happens is, if that stool sits in our bowel for too long, then those, the toxins that we're trying to get rid of gets reabsorbed into our bloodstream, and our liver then has to reprocess it a second time. And now we're putting pressure on our liver, and it's stressing our liver out. So there's the ideal time, that 18 to 24 hours that we want to be, meal in, meal out kind of thing. And a lot of people don't realize too, what I get teased a lot in my house. We talk a lot about poop in my house. So a lot of people don't realize that, we should be going like 2 times a day, 2-3 times a day. That's quite normal, right? That's not what I grew up. That's not what
you mean not 2 times a week?
Not 2 times a week. No. But I tell you, Neil, when I grew up, when I was a child, my family doctor way back in the day, you know, they said like, yeah, every 2-3 days, that's fine. That's normal. It's not normal. It is not normal. And so it's really important to educate kids to know that that's not normal. Yeah.
On that then, if you got some gut problems, maybe yourself or maybe you've noticed your child has got something going on,
Mm.
what steps do you take? So you just mentioned, seeing how long it takes to process out of your body, so about 18 to 24 hours. So
Yep.
tick with this. Jen, what's next?
What's next?
Yeah.
You know, I would be looking at consistency, because that's going to tell you a lot. Your end product is going to tell you a lot about your digestive system, how well it's, if you have a lot of undigested food in it, then you're not really going to be, you're not getting the nutrients again, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so as we age, our body's ability to generate the hydrochloric acid in our stomach starts to decline. So that's, you may have heard people taking enzymes or enzymes with hydrochloric acid. And that's why, because it needs a little extra help to break the foods down into usable nutrients for our body versus our stomach trying to do all the work that it's not able to do. So, yeah, so after I'd be watching the consistency, all of that. The big word nowadays too is probiotics. You may or may not need it, depending on, again, where you're at. But probiotics, like our microbiome, our gut has, and I'm going to use this term very loosely, good and bad bacteria. And it needs to be in a certain ratio with each other. We want technically about 80% good bacteria versus the bad bacteria. And it's not really good or bad, but it's just needs to be in a certain ratio. And if it gets out of balance, then what happens is our gut produces so much, like about 80% of our serotonin, about 50% of our dopamine. And so that's our happy hormones, right? And so if it's not getting the nutrients, the right microbiome, then we're not producing those. And we're not, our body is out of balance, out of sync. And then that out of sync kind of can affect other body systems.
So then, for example, you mentioned before, if someone, say they were constipated, and you mentioned that their liver would then be, flushing it twice. Is it best to have something to help you with your liver at that point, or what's the next step at that point?
If you're constipated, I would just really lots of water first of all, because sometimes it's a dehydration, and that's part of the problem. Simple, easy solution is magnesium. We tend not to get enough magnesium in our diet, a lot of people. And so magnesium is something that you can take to what they refer to as bowel tolerance. And what that means is magnesium will help relax smooth muscle. And our bowel is a smooth muscle. And so when I say bowel tolerance, it's not like you're going to take it and you're going to be running to the washroom. But I take magnesium myself at nighttime to help things, just help me relax, number one, at nighttime, and help things run smoothly in the morning. And so each brand of supplement will have their own formulation, their own measurement of how much magnesium is in a cap or in a powder. And so you just need to find out what works for you in that case. And that's an easy way to figure it out.
Thank you. I was listening a couple of days ago, and there was about 5 or 6 doctors, and they were talking about nutrition, and they all agreed that if you could only afford one supplement out of everything that you could go into the store, they all agreed that the one supplement that everyone should take was magnesium.
It's magnesium. Yeah, it's a huge one. And without getting into the, all the details, so many of these nutrients help in so many different ways in our body. Like I talked about magnesium helping smooth muscle. Like that's just one little avenue. There's a lot of supplements, minerals, and vitamins that are cofactors in other functions in our body.
I read in a variety of classes that there's at least 200 things in our body every day that we use magnesium for. So if you're depleted, you are really depleted. And for people like me who have executive dysfunctioning problems, magnesium is crucial for you. So on that, apart from supplements, where would you get magnesium from your diet?
Well, I mentioned chocolate. There's one of them. I got to think about that one off the top of my head. I'm just blanking out at the moment. I apologize.
We will add it to the comments
after. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Typically what I'll do is with my intakes, I give people the key nutrients that their body are lacking. And then I'll give them the list of everything of where they can find it. Yeah.
So do you then recommend things like
we've been at this. Oh, sorry. I was going to say I can't believe we're at 35 minutes into our program. So if our viewers, our listeners, however you're tuning into, if you want to get a hold of Jen, Jen in the green room said that she has a website, but it's just not up to par right now. So she's embarrassed and doesn't want anyone to see it and know about it. And she promises it's going to be updated soon.
Yes.
But to get a hold of her, just drop her an email here. And and I know, because I know Jen outside of this podcast, and I know that she's just been crazy busy, so she does have a reasonable reason, not an excuse, but a reason for its chaos.
Yeah.
So if you would like to work with Jen, you want to know more about Jen and her offerings, because what is it that you offer the people? What is it that what can you do for me?
What
the
can you
carb
do for me? Yeah. What I coach people in nutrition, holistic nutrition, and what that means is it covers like all areas. It's not just the actual what you're eating. It's your eating patterns. It's your habits. It's we haven't touched on toxicity, right? Anything, the toxins that are in our lives, and how do you deal with that? A lot of my clients will have a specific thing that, whether they're celiac or whether they have just a gluten intolerance, or they're trying to gain weight, lose weight. So a whole spectrum. And lately what I've found a lot of people wanting help with is just to make sense of it all, right, in a cohesive, coherent way, because there's so much information out there. There's so much, Dr. Google has 1,001 answers, and half of them oppose the other answers. And how do you know what to believe and what not to believe? Not to even mention that research is changing. The various, there were some new research papers out on this, and now we know this, and we thought this, and now it's different. And so it's taking all that information and making sense for it, and not so that people aren't overwhelmed, because it can be so overwhelming. And I'd rather people start and just take baby steps than just stop, not doing anything because they don't know where to start and that kind of thing. So yes, I coach people on nutrition. I've done group programs, and anyone that, the phrase that I use is, wherever you are on your path to health and wellness, I'll meet you there.
Excellent. Because when I was growing up, butter was the best thing for you, and then margarine was the best thing for you, and then butter, and then margarine. Well, and it's like, and oh no, then it's the almond butters, then all of the whatever, and eggs you should stay away from, bad. Now eggs are, it's like, yeah, to make sense of it all, and I suspect that everyone's like, butter for me is not good. I have a dairy allergy, so that wouldn't be a good choice for me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing is a lot of people do have sensitivities and allergies. I'm like you, Neil. I love dairy. Dairy does not love me. And same with eggs. I would love to have eggs. And I do sometimes have the occasional eggs, and I'll do the triple threat and have eggs with hollandaise sauce. But I'll only have one because I know my limits. But that's exactly what it's about. It's about knowing, it's becoming clear, and that's what I can help people with, is just helping people be clear about where they are and where they want to go. And then we can have that discussion of, where to go, and decipher what they've heard about this and what they've heard about that and how that plays into or not, right? There's always solutions.
I'm curious as to whether you would recommend a food diary to people.
I often do, absolutely. Yeah. What I do when I take an intake is I'll have somebody do a food diary for a week. And not because I want to judge them, anything of the sort, for several reasons. One is I can see where they might be lacking some nutrients. I can also see where, when it comes to me recommending foods and that will support where they want to go with their goals, then I will know what type of foods they also like. So it helps me inform me as well. Food diaries, you can do what I refer to food and mood diaries as well.
Yeah.
Symptom diaries, where you can take a look and see that, okay, I ate this and 3 days later this happened. Is it related? I don't know. Let's take continue on and take a look. But if you don't have that information, you can't look back and see what it may have been to start.
And I love that when you do a food diary, you can come up with these correlations between things. Suddenly after dairy, I had an itchy head, or my eczema flared up, or I had an asthma attack. These sorts of things that we may not have realized days later. As opposed to maybe an immediate allergy where suddenly going into anaphylaxis. Obvious problem, don't eat the shellfish, walk away. Maybe get some help or the EpiPen out. So with intolerances that we have, is there another way that we can look into our own food diary ourselves?
Yeah, you can do that for sure. The trouble with when you have an anaphylactic reaction, it's immediate, so you can see it. Whereas it can be typically up to 3 days, where a sensitivity might show up. But the challenge is it can show up in so many different ways, right? You mentioned eczema. That's what happens with me. If I reach my threshold for dairy, the first thing is, and I get eczema, and people get it in different areas, right? I get it on my eyelids. And then from there, if I don't pay attention, then they start to swell. So it's knowing your body, where we started the conversation way back when, but it's also, like you said, tracking to see, and what you're tracking is not just the food, but you're tracking also, it's like, did I have any symptoms today? No. Did I have brain fog? No. Did I have energy? Yes. Did I have, all of those things, right? How were my bowel movements? All of those things. So you track that in one day to the next day to the next day, and then maybe you can start unraveling and making the correlations. For sure. Yeah.
Jen is in the house. We're back to bowel movements.
This is such a shitty conversation.
Don't send her any photos to this email, though. Do go and ask us some questions.
So what I love about technology today is that there are so many easy to find recipes
Yeah.
to that for anything. If I'm going to increase my apple intake, I can go and I can find how to bake an apple, how to make apple sauce, how to throw it in, make an apple smoothie, or use it with and mix it. What goes good with this in apples in a smoothie? And I'm thinking pretty much everything, but
Yeah.
but it's technology can be our friend in recipes. Just as Jen was saying, technology can be our enemy when you go to Dr. Google and start to look for what's wrong. So
yeah, and there's some other apps that are fabulous. I'm sure all your viewers or listeners are familiar with MyFitnessPal. So it's a great way. I use MyFitnessPal. I don't eat a lot of meat, practically none, and it's not. I just don't like it. I really just don't like it, and so I track my protein and to make sure that I'm getting enough protein, essentially. But you can use apps like that to help make sure that you're getting the right nutrients that your body needs, right? And there's another app it's called Yuka, and it's about helping you understand what foods may be potentially hazardous or not good for you. It basically gives you a rundown of excuse me, what is in it and what is possibly harmful, and then it'll explain why it's harmful, which is really helpful information.
So we're talking about nutrition. Do I really care? Like, do I need to read my labels on my? Because I'm going to go for my processed food, and do I need to read my labels or?
Yeah, reading labels can be really not tricky, but here's the thing about labels. I'm not sure in Australia what it's like, but in Canada, on the front, it's fair game, right? It's all about the marketing. The food industry is all about profit. They just want you to buy. And so they're going to call it keto. They're going to use all those key words to draw you in. It's natural. It's it's low in low in sugar. It's whatever, right? They're going to use those words on the front. But when you turn that package over and actually read the label, you'll get the truth. Now, you might have to decipher the truth where and the red flags on this is when it doesn't make sense. When they say there is X number of calories or X number of sugar in a serving, and serving size makes no sense. Like, I hate when they say a serving size is 10 chips. Like, am I ever gonna count my chips that I'm having? No, right? So you really have to watch that serving size, because that's how they get around a lot of it, right? They know that people are gonna look at that label and read the basics, but they're not gonna look at the serving size. Oh, that was only in a teaspoon. Well, this is like a whole big thing, right? So yeah. And one of the things, people they'll put in that, it's how many grams of sugar. And people is like, I don't know, it's like 20 grams okay? Is like, what is that? I physically, even in nutrition, it's like, I don't know how much that is. But an easy way to figure that out is, rule of thumb is, generally speaking, take that number of grams, divide it by 4, and that's approximately how many teaspoons are in whatever serving size that they're saying. So sometimes
grams by 4, is that what you said? Sorry.
Yeah. So, and it's surprising sometimes. Like, you'll get something that's like a tablespoon of ketchup, and it has a teaspoon of sugar in it. It's like, whoa, right? So.
And from I know personally, because we had a fitness instructor and nutritionist on a year ago, Scott McDermott, and I love that he puts how many. Most people don't like the fitness activity of a burpee, and he has his Halloween, a list of all the kids' Halloween candies and how much sugar involved, and he correlates it to how many burpees you have to do to eat one piece of candy, and it's a lot.
It's
One sweet
yeah.
is a hell of a lot of burpees, or a heck of a long way to run.
I was gonna say, it's crazy. Like a piece of cake is something like you have to run, what is it, 3 miles or something like that to burn off one small slice of cake. So yeah, but that's
a lot more, I imagine.
Yeah, that's what I love about the My Fitness Pal app is, I don't expect people to use it for a long time, but I'll get them to use it for a little while, because it's a real great way of learning, of what nutrients are in it, what macros are in it, what how many calories are in it, right? Because you're going to be looking at how that serves your body or not, right? So,
hey Jen, I wanted to jump in and ask something about rehab. I don't know about you, but I've certainly had surgeries before and been on crutches before, and to carry a plate when you're on crutches, quite tricky. So to cooking and a lot of other things that we do around our rehab journey. One of the tricks I personally have, and I'm curious if you've got any other tricks yourself in a moment, was putting a whole, like a tray of food in the fridge. And it was all stuff that I could put in a backpack on my back whilst I was on my crutches to eat. And I was curious to know, for some people, I know they're so tired, one reason or another, maybe they'll only eat a piece of cheese that night, maybe it's a handful of nuts, because the whole cooking process can be so draining for one reason or another.
Yeah.
I don't think about why, but I'm curious to know what other tips you may have for somebody in that rehab journey. Could it be like getting meals in that don't, not just, Uber Eats or something like that, or what you might suggest?
Well, surgeries and rehab kind of stuff often are planned. They're not, obviously there's accidents happen and whatnot. But what I suggest people do is, I'm all about food preparation ahead of time. So you're going to go into surgery, have some meals, a wide variety of meals, anything from small to large meals that you can pull out of the freezer at any time. And I do a lot of smaller servings so that if I want another, I'll take 2 out and I'll either have one day and one the next day, or put it together because I'm really hungry. One of my go-tos I just love is bone broth, and so incredibly healing for the gut, so incredibly healing for after any surgeries as well. And that's such an easy thing to make ahead of time. Put it in jars, freeze it, take it out. You can sip on it like coffee. If you want to add in what I do, because I'm always looking for sources of protein, I have a pre-measured jar of nuts and seeds that I dump into it. You can add some rice into it. You have a whole meal then, right? If you wanted to put meat in it, absolutely go that route. I just don't eat meat myself. So, yeah.
Me either. I think one of the ways that I got by was with lentil soup. I could put it in my carry cup and I could hobble about with it, and it wouldn't spill anywhere, which is very important. I think there's a lot around this sort of, what we may or may not intake for one reason or another. And I just like to point out to anybody watching or listening, it's okay just to have that cheese if that's all you've got. The energy ball, just that apple, whatever it is, just do it. Some kind of food is better than no food, right, Jen?
Yeah, exactly. Just and that's the thing, is like, if it's a toast, when you're on the mend. I mean, I don't know if you remember way back when, when my kids were small and when they were sick, it was the brat diet, right? Bread, rice. What was the other part? Applesauce. and toast, right? Keep it simple because that's what was easy on the stomach. You know, ginger is great. Ginger and lemon is always fantastic. But it's you know, get some of these things ahead of time, and then just be gentle with yourself. Just be gentle.
And we haven't really talked about it, and I'm cognizant of the time. But nutrition starts in the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you bring home. If you bring home things that are low nutritional value, then that's what you're going to be eating. So in the grocery store is when your nutritional plan really starts.
And I would even back it up and say, you know, back to your goals and everything else is being very clear on what you want for your health and your wellness, and then going to the grocery store and shopping. And there's all of those tips and tricks about, you know, not going when you're hungry or just before dinner time, right? Stay to the outside of the grocery store. As grocery stores are getting wise to that, and so I've noticed a lot of times they're moving things around. So yeah, stay in the whole food section. What doesn't come home doesn't get eaten, right? So yeah.
I think also if you can't pronounce what's on the label, maybe that's an opportunity to not bring it home. Like, it may say sugar-free, but you don't know what aspartame is or something else. You know, that's a big red flag. So if you can't pronounce it, maybe just walk back to the fruit and veg aisles.
And that's what I love about the Yuka app is that it has a bar scan, and you can scan the food, and instantly it'll give you a value out of 100. So green light, orange light, red light. It'll rate it, and then you have to take things into consideration like coconut milk, coconut cream. Yeah, it's red light because it's high in saturated fat. We know that, right? We're not going to drink an entire can of coconut cream. So it's knowing that, but it gives you a quick reference right away. It's like, and some of the things you think are going to be terrible actually are okay, right? And it helps. For me, it helps make decisions. My kids have started using it because it's fun too, right? You get to scan things. And you scan it, you get your score, and then it'll also give you alternatives of what might be a healthier choice. Some are the healthier choice, and some will give you, oh, you know, you might want to try this, and it'll do it for not only food items but for other health items too. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I'm looking at the clock, and I'm going, oh my goodness, how did an hour? Just under an hour pass. So I really want to thank you, Jen, for taking the time, because you were already busy today and doing things. So thank you for taking the time to be here. And I would just like to leave our viewers, our listeners, no matter how you're listening or watching this podcast, whether it's live and replay, to know that you are worthy of all your dreams and aspirations, and eating healthy and getting exercise will carry you or help carry you forward. So, Jen, is there anything else that you would like to leave our listeners and viewers with?
You know, I think the big thing is you don't have to do it alone. There's so many people out there that can help you. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, then reach out. There's always somebody that can help you, help decipher the information, and get you where you want to be.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I trust that what you've shared with us has been valuable to our listeners, and no, we appreciate you, Jen. From my perspective, I want to remind everybody that we absorb things in so many ways. So choose wisely. Design the life you desire.
Indeed. Yeah.
Thank you.
For sure.
Take
See you
care.
next time.
Take care.
Till next time.
Bye-bye.